Barbecue. Hello and welcome to Boost, Booze, and Barbecue. This is Andy. And man, you guys, we're having a good time here. Real good time. Over at Pardon My Fork, we're part of a couple of new networks, so I want to go ahead and give a shout out to Live 605 and Spoonie Radio. That's spoonie.com, and live605.com is where you're going to be able to find our content over on their networks. So I'm very excited about that. We have had an enormous amount of support over there, and we really appreciate that. And we've also had an enormous amount of support here at Boost, Booze, and Barbecue. We've gotten some reviews. We've gotten some ratings. iTunes, we're seeing a few ratings pop up there. And y'all know why. It's because everybody wants to win that free t-shirt. We are 2 weeks away from announcing a winner for that t-shirt. And at this point, it's anybody's game. If you want that shirt, all you got to do is go out to iTunes, rate it, review it, let us know what you think about the show, and hopefully I can earn that 5-star from you guys. That's what we're always shooting for, and I always want to be improving. You know, we always want to improve, not just this show, but all of our shows here at Boost, Booze, and Barbecue. And for today, I'm actually really happy because I was able to pull an interview out of the archives from Summer Slevin. She has a blog called Nat Park Stories, and it is a really interesting story that she has, and it's a very interesting journey that she's been on. She is taking a van that has been converted into a living situation, essentially, and it's not a full-size van either. It's a Ford Transit. I would never think of doing something like that in a Ford Transit. But seeing her build out and seeing the tools that she uses on a regular basis to make it happen is just very impressive. It's not something that I would ever think that I would see, but it works for her. And incredibly, she's able to make it happen. And she's been all across the country. The episode is, I don't want to call it outdated per se, but it is from a while back. So you're going to hear some references to some things from last year. And you're also going to hear her say that she has 2 podcasts up now. She actually has 12 up now. So I encourage you to go and check those out. iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, all those good places. Nat Park Stories is what that's called. We will get right into that interview in just a second. But first, I want to talk about Delusion, Kiss Me When I'm Dead, the new book by author Wayne Clark. Meet Anthony Stone, a lover, a killer. He's drawn to a woman named Laura, but as Anthony digs deeper into her life, he slowly learns the truth about her and pays a high price. Delusion, Kiss Me When I'm Dead, available now on paperback and Amazon Kindle. All right. Now let's hear Summer's story about falling in love with America, one national park at a time.
Hey, Andy, how's it going?
Doing fantastic. Thanks so much for being here. Nat Park Stories. You can find her at Nat Park Stories on Facebook. The Patreon is going to be patreon.com/Nat Park Stories. Make sure you're going and checking out that Patreon. She's got a fantastic blog talking about all the different stuff that she's doing. I want to get right into it, Summer. What made you decide that you were just going to go on this grand adventure?
Well, I guess just a number of things, but mostly I just kind of felt a little unsteady in America right now. I was looking at traveling and relocating internationally, and I had just gotten back from a trip in Australia where I was considering a job last year. But I decided that I didn't want to leave and have this feeling of animosity towards America, towards the country that I really want to love. And so I kind of decided that I wanted to go on a grand voyage to fall back in love with America. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I found this bus online, and I was like, oh my gosh, could I live in a bus? That'd be awesome. Ended up being way out of my price range, and way out of my loan range as well. And so I ended up falling in love with a van, 2012 Ford Transit, and it's pretty tiny. It's not bus size at all. It's 6 foot by 4 foot in the cab, and I just built it out and had some friends that helped me out. I had a guy do all the woodwork for me. It was really incredible. And we insulated it all and got some electricity in there and a secondary battery. And so in July, ready or not, I hit the road and I went to Alaska from Central Illinois. So that's where I started. And I just decided that the last time I felt in love with the country was when I was visiting the national parks and just talking to strangers. So I just decided to do that that's what I'm doing.
That's so amazing. I'm really impressed with everything that you're able to pack inside of that Ford Transit. Like you said, it's just 6 foot by 4 foot on the inside. So you insulated it, and you, of course, built the platform for your bed, and you've got storage underneath and everything. Do you keep any kitchen utensils, a gas burner, anything like that with you as well to cook on while you're out?
So I'm not a researcher at all. I am a journalist, but I don't like researching things very much, so I just researched as much as I needed to know to just do the thing. So I just was like researching, like scraping the rust off while I was doing it and insulating while I was doing it. So I really wasn't too prepared when I hit the road, but it all worked out. So I had a friend that gave me a literal electric 1-burner stove, and I have a 1,000-watt inverter, and so it's like not a whole lot of power, so I can cook that 1 burner for about, 4 or 5 minutes on high, or on low I can like sizzle some chicken for a long period of time. So my family actually brought me a little care package in Colorado after I'd been on the road for a couple of months, and it had a gas burner in there. So now I have a little 2-burner gas or 1-burner gas stove as well. So yeah, I've got all that, and then I've got this itty bitty little that I got Ross for $5. And it is like the best invention of all time. I plug it into my inverter. It works perfectly every time. And it will like boil water within 10 minutes. And I can put 4 cups in there. I've made so many soups. You can even like bake, I guess, in it. I have not done that yet. So it's like an all-in-one kitchen appliance. So those are the things that I use on a pretty frequent basis. Oh, and then I have a coffee maker as well.
Oh, definitely.
Can't not have that.
Yeah, that's a necessity for sure.
I've got a nice little kitchen set up.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I'm even more impressed with your setup now. Yeah, that electric burner, I can see how the electric burner wouldn't maybe last a super long time. I'm glad you got your hands on a gas burner. Did you end up doing any just like cooking over an open fire while you were out there, that sort of thing?
No, I really didn't do too much primitive camping at all or any of that. I used what I had, and I was in Alaska for a month and a week. And then I was in Canada for, I think, 2 or 3 weeks total on that expedition because it was 3,500 miles from here. So I actually just stayed in my van because I was like, didn't even bring a tent. I'm like, I am not going to sleep out where bears are. I do not do anything that was like primitive at all. I was actually not scared at all in my van for the most part. But if I would have been in a tent, I don't know how people just tent camp in the woods in Alaska. I have no idea how they get over that.
Totally hear you. It's one of those things where you've got to be pretty extreme. I mean, we're going to have some people listening to this going, camping in your van, that's nothing. And then there are going to be other people listening to this going, holy smokes, you were camping in a van in Alaska? Like, really? So we're going to be all over the spectrum.
I think that, like, that's the thing. It's like, there's always somebody more badass, right? Like I met these, like, I mean, everybody was like, man, what you're doing is so crazy brave. And I was like, I don't know. It doesn't feel that brave. It just feels like something I'm doing. And then I met people on the road like that. I met like 2 guys in their 50s that were motorcycling, like from Oregon or from Washington. They went all the way to the Atlantic Ocean and like, we're just like camping and doing different things. I was like, man, this is just crazy. Like, these people are so badass.
Jeez, calm down, Bear Grylls.
Somebody that had been on the road. Yeah, they met somebody that had been motorcycling for 2 years straight. And they were like, man, what we're doing is nothing compared to what this guy is doing. So it's just like all of these levels of like interesting stories and craziness. And I think that it's all just as brave, right? If you're going out of your comfort zone, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Even if it's just, tent camping in your backyard, if that's out of your comfort zone, then I think that's really brave. So
you know what? I like that.
It's all relative.
I like that outlook, and I appreciate that. It is all relative to what your comfort zone is. I love cooking over an open fire. I just like to have it in my own backyard. It's one of those things.
Yeah, definitely. I get that for sure. I mean, I'm by fires a lot. My dad is a camper for sure. He loves going out and camping and being in the wilderness. And he came to visit me in Colorado, and we he camped out. I didn't. I was like, I have my van. And I appreciate the feel of an outdoor fire. I'm just honestly too lazy to make one.
No, I get it. I'm with you. And you know what? I would be remiss if I didn't roll this back a little ways. You said right at the top that you actually are a journalist. Like, you have a degree in journalism, then I take it?
I do, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That explains why your blogs are so eloquent.
Oh, well, thank you. I really didn't go into journalism after getting the degree. I went into being a store manager and marketing director for a small business. And then I went in to be a marketing director for a national author. And then I was executive marketing support for a multi-million-dollar company in Canada last year. And I decided that I just want to do virtual assisting, which is what I do for money. And I do that 3 days a week. And then I am just kind of utilizing my passion for journalism by storytelling, by just making this a passion project and approaching strangers at the parks and saying, hey, like, do you mind if I just record our conversation? And, talking to them about the parks and, hopefully evoking some emotion about the beauty of the parks and experiences they've had and why people go there and why people should go there, but also like their personal story and evoking that kind of just feeling that you get when you're listening to somebody that you can relate to. I just want that to be the feeling you get listening to all of the episodes. So that's kind of my journalism take on it.
No, I like that a lot. I mean, that's truly, you're doing a form of guerrilla journalism, really. Like, you're not in a war zone, but you're certainly not doing Humans of New York kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, I always hate how pretentious some of those get, where the journalists go out and they talk to people on the street, and it's like, oh yeah, my parents had a multi-million-dollar company, and even though I'm 55, I only teach water aerobics at the Y twice a month, and I'm able to afford this downtown apartment. Like, I really don't like people like that. And so you have taken it way, way beyond that. You've said, hey, I can make money. I can travel. I want to do something that I love, and I want to fold my journalism into it. And I think that's very commendable. Yeah. I really appreciate what it is that you're trying to do here. I'm really curious, logistically, how are you making the whole virtual assistant thing work? Are you trying to rely off of like a Wi-Fi hotspot on your phone? Is that how you make that happen?
That's a good question. So I mentioned before we went on this interview that I have bought a Pixel, and it's through Google. So it's like Project Fi. So I do have pretty good service everywhere. It uses like Sprint, T-Mobile, and US Cellular, I think, which surprisingly is pretty good service, even in Canada, but not in Alaska. But anyway, they have up to 15 gigs of data, and like they cap it at 6. Like, you pay for every 10 gigs of data, and then they cap it at 6. So the most you can pay for data is $60, and then they give you like 15 gigs. So like, I do use my hotspot when necessary, but with video calls, which is how I meet with my clients 3 times a week, I actually would go through that data like within 2 days. So I go to cafes quite frequently, and my clients are just phenomenal. They're really, really great. They really support my mission, and they've been really flexible with me. And there are some days when I am like unable to find Wi-Fi, but really make it a priority. So about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I try to go into a town or a city, especially like if they have a Starbucks, because I know it's reliable, or an Anchorage. Wendy's had the best Wi-Fi, which was crazy. So I try to go to somewhere reliable, and I just kind of stay in parking lots for 3 days.
That's incredible. I mean, you really are a 21st century nomad. You know that, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. Yeah, digital nomad. And then I have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to drive to the parks, or continue on my journey, and then find my interviews and ideally edit the interviews. Although I am a massive procrastinator, but that is the time that I have to work on my passion projects. That's
a lot of fun. I'm serious. That's really incredible.
It's really fun. I started as an assistant, an executive assistant, when I was 17 or 18 for a while for all of these different like CEOs. Like, while I was working other jobs, I would also have like an assistant position a lot of times because it was so part-time. And so I feel like I'm really competent with that, and it's something that I can help people that I really believe in. Like, I only work for clients that I want to become like or become more like. And so like it gives me that control to choose who I want to work for. And then it also obviously gives me the flexibility of being on the road. But there's a lot of options for working nomadically. And so I always tell people, like, don't just think you just have to be a virtual assistant. There's a ton of options for working online, and you could do it around your schedule a lot of times, especially as an independent contractor. They can't tell you when you have to work necessarily. So you can be very flexible as long as you get the work done.
Right, exactly. And you can kind of pick and choose when that work gets done as long as you hit that deadline. That's a really interesting aspect of what you're doing is you've got yourself in this position where you can kind of just, as long as, like you say, you're getting your work done, then it's all good. As a matter of fact, you have been able to travel around not just to parks, you also made it to TravelCon recently, right?
I did, yeah. That was in Austin. So I shot down from Alaska. I knew that my one deadline that I had to meet was September 21st, where I would have to be in Austin, Texas. So, I just barely made it down there. It was quite a drive. And, I also struggle with, getting frequent migraines, and I struggle with anxiety as well. And so that's something that I also bring up in my personal story is, you don't have to be completely healthy to be on the road. You just have to know how to work around your needs.
Well, how have you found this whole adventure? What effect has it had on your anxiety? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, wouldn't that cause you more anxiety? But maybe at some point it might almost help because, I mean, you're totally reliant on yourself, and it builds a lot of self-confidence, I would think, right?
Totally. Yeah. I really do feel like this is like something that's like, a calling for right now, right? Like something I'm meant to be doing. And so I feel like that alleviates my anxiety because I was struggling to figure out what I was supposed to be doing. And when this idea came to me, it almost just like fit, like it was like my whole life was leading up to this point. And it was like the weight was lifted. And I just like knew, like I had a direction, right? And that was really big for me. And then on the road, I am in control of my environment. And if I want to be somewhere on Tuesday, I can be somewhere, right? I can just move my home and I can be wherever I need to be. And that's really nice. And there are some things that cause anxiety on the road. I'm not particularly afraid to be on the road. I'm not afraid of strangers at all. Unless my intuition tells me that something's off, which I listen to my intuition as much as possible. And I think that's really important for being on the road too. So, I mean, certain things that cause anxiety are like where you're going to sleep that night. Sometimes when you're traveling, like living nomadically, there's not a viable option for, especially free camping. And so that can be stressful, but it's not so much that I would get, an anxiety attack from that. It's just something that I just have made my new normal.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I think that if it's not it's not right for you, it's not the right lifestyle, it could definitely cause anxiety. Just shifting so much and being in constant motion. And also people, I don't think, talk that much about finding that stability when your whole life is constantly changing. Like living on the road, you have to create routines and stability. And so that's something I definitely struggled with initially and still do, honestly. And just trying to find what works for me and what doesn't work for me and how to readjust that depending on my needs. And I'm home for the holidays in Central Illinois. And literally, I was going to the gym all of the time because that's where I showered. I had a Planet Fitness membership, and I would be at the gym. So I'd be like, I might as well, get on the elliptical for an office episode. And so that was like my motivation to work out. And now I'm home and I am like not at all interested in working out. And so I was talking to my life coach, who is like a really great force in my life. And she was like, well, what can you do to motivate yourself? And I was like, I could not shower at home. If I have to shower at the gym again, that would motivate me to go. So it's kind of funny that that's where I found some routine in my schedule. It's like, well, this makes me more healthy because when I work out, I actually eat healthier and I feel better. And, and I'm also not sitting as I would be in the van and while working.
So, it's funny you're talking about all this stuff because it's you trying to to trick yourself into doing these things. It's the same thing that really everyone should be doing. Like just recently, I had a whole lineup of new, not exactly medications, but like supplements and stuff that I need to start taking. I'm horrible about taking pills. And so I finally just decided I was going to order myself one of those pill containers that's meant for like 4 times a day pills, right? And I just filled them all, even though I'm only taking them once a day. Now I have a month's worth of all of these stupid pills lined up that I need to be diligent about taking. And so it's those little tricks, you know, the mind games of getting yourself around. And I feel like what you're doing is probably...
I was just going to say 2 things on that. But I want you to finish your thought first.
Oh, it's just about your anxiety that is so pervasive in the country right now and really in a lot of first world nations. And I feel like there is a certain level of anxiety from the low expectations that we seem to have for people. And so that's one of the reasons why I find your story so fascinating is you've really forced yourself out of a comfort bubble. You've forced yourself out of the comfort zone. You just said, I can take care of myself. I can do this thing. I can still have a job, but I'm passionate about this. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it, but I know that I want to do it. And you really just took that plunge. And it's something that I hear from not just you, but small business owners, people who have created their own products, you know, stuff like that. They finally reached a point where they just said, I am crawling out of my skin. I have to do something. And they just take some kind of a plunge, any kind of a plunge. And it's amazing how often people are successful when they do it. So it's sort of like, it comes back around to that whole thing. You really have nothing to fear but fear itself, right? But the fear is all being from inside of you. It's that anxiety of low expectations that are being put on you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, nothing exceptional comes out of the ordinary, right? So if you don't step out of your comfort zone, you can't expect exceptional things to happen to you.
100%.
Extraordinary things to happen to you. You know, so it always kind of frustrates me when people, they are working a job that they hate and they just expect things to get better. And for me, I understand making ends meet. I totally understand that. And I have sympathy for that, for sure. But being stuck in something where you feel you have no control, but you do, that frustrates me so much because life is so short. And if you're doing things that you hate 40 hours a week, you know, like, that adds up to more than 1,800 hours a year that you are stuck being miserable. And not only that, but when you get home, you're just recovering from a job that just drained you. And on weekends, you're recovering and preparing for a job that drains you. And I've been there. I worked, 90-hour weeks. And I did that for a while. And I just don't think that that's life. I don't think that that's real life. I think we just made it to appear like that was the success that we were striving for. And it's not it. It's not it for me, at least. And it's not what I want to strive for at all. I feel very, very successful right now. I really do. I feel wealthy. I do. It's like I'm making less money than I've ever made in my life, honestly. And I'm just living very small. I have just a really small lifestyle. I don't have all of these bills that were adding up so much in my, 2-bedroom apartment life. I'm just like only having what I need. And all of the things that I own brings me joy, right? Like all of my clothes that I fit in one bag, they all bring me joy. Like I want to wear them. I'm like, oh, what shirt should I wear today? I have so many good ones. Like, I really, and I honestly wear the shirt for a couple of days, a lot of times, but it's just such a good shirt. Anyway, like, I just think that and this isn't for everybody, and I honestly, truly believe that we have our own version of success. But when you feel like you're not living up to that version of success, you have to change something because life will be over before you know it, or your ability to change will be over before you know it. And if nothing extraordinary comes out of the ordinary, so you have to make extraordinary things happen out of your comfort zone. I wanted to circle back on your pill thing. 2 things on that. I just wanted to say that I was with my old therapist, and she said that if you want to start a new habit, pair it with an old habit. So, like, if you want to take your pills every day, pair it with something that you already do every day, like drink your coffee or brush your teeth or whatever. And that has like been a game changer for me.
Mm.
I'm like, oh, duh. I just didn't even think about it. And now it's like, literally I have like a whole routine. I've got like my face wash, I've got my contact solution, I've got my toothbrush, I've got my floss. And then my life coach, we just talked about this, and I was like, it's just, I don't think I'm lazy. I just don't do things that are inconvenient. Like, I just don't know how to make myself motivated. And she's like, well, why don't you just make things more convenient? And I was like, oh, that's so simple, right? Like, if I'm going to floss, I am not going to look through my drawer to pick out my floss, right? I have to have it laying next to my toothbrush. I will not do it if I don't see it every night next to me, or whatever else. Like, if I'm to record my intro outro, I have to make my microphone next to me on my computer, or else I will be like, oh, it's in the car, I'll just not do that. It's like, if it's inconvenient, I just think that that's like what I'm learning as an adult. Like, things don't get like easier. I just start figuring out how I work best and doing that.
It's so true. I mean, probably the separation between the everyman or woman, obviously, and the quote unquote genius is just their way of incorporating new things into their routine so that they can get more done. I mean, it sounds good in my head when I say that. So, it's probably true if you don't think about it too hard.
Yeah. Implementation is always hard.
That's right. Okay, so swinging back around to TravelCon, you had some really cool photos come out of there. It looked like you met some really incredible people. Were you able to kind of spread the word of your journey while you were there?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I met some really good, I built some really good relationships. And I think like that's what it's all about for me. I hate the term networking because I feel like that's like using people and, giving to receive. And I really truly feel like it's way more than that. And like, I don't go into an event thinking like, what can I gain necessarily? I go in thinking like, what knowledge can I gain? What skill sets can I, work on? But what relationships can I build? Because I have met just truly incredible and inspiring people. And I don't know if you saw, but on my post, I said this as well. I try to go to at least 2 conferences every year. And I think that that's really been the catalyst for me. Is surrounding myself by people I want to be like and like that have motivated me and inspired me. Without that, I would have had a bunch of people that did not understand why I would possibly want to live in a vehicle. And, that would sound really like tiring to a lot of people to travel full time. But now I go to these conferences and it's not only like possible for these people, but it's a reality for them. And that's really exciting to see because it becomes more of a possibility in my mind. And it also gives me the motivation and the example almost of following in somebody else's footsteps, in a matter of speaking, which, previously I would have thought like, this is kind of just a nutty idea. But you know what? It's not really that nutty. It's pretty cool and I'm really enjoying it. But it's definitely untraditional. So I try to go to these conferences where they are full of untraditional people. So TravelCon it was really cool because I booked my ticket based on the speakers that were going to be there. And I booked it, I think, in February of this year. My favorite author, Rolf Potts, he's the author of Vagabonding, the art of long-term travel. It's really, really great book. And I read it in 2015, and it was kind of the catalyst for me living in my car for 2 months after graduating and traveling. So that's kind of another route of this trip. And I traveled for 2 months and got my parks pass, and I went all over the West Coast and went to a bunch of different parks on that trip. And that was because of this book that I had read that made long-term travel available in my mind and attainable.
That's interesting.
So anyway, he was a speaker there, and then there was quite a few amazing speakers as well.
That's really interesting. So you were able to meet kind of the guy that started you on this journey. That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, we actually have become friends. So it's kind of a funny thing. Yeah, but I bought him some bourbon whiskey and we found a lot of similarities, and he actually lived in his van initially. So yeah, we've actually become friends because of that conference. And then I just met from, like, I had a professor that was like, you have to read this book called Trust Me, I'm Lying. And I was like, oh, okay. And I read it and I was like, wow, that was a really great book. And then all of a sudden, like, this year I get to see him speak. And I was like, you have to take a picture with me because my professor made me read your book years ago. So I sent my professor that picture of him and I. And he actually was a huge motivation at the conference. I stood up and asked a question after his talk, and I was like, you know, I'm really struggling with getting the motivation to edit this podcast. Like, I have the skills. Like, I went to school for journalism. I know how to edit. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I can't edit it. And he's like, well, you know, maybe you're making it to be something that it's not, right? Like, in my mind, I had this idea of like an NPR podcast, right? Which is what we all, I think, like, think about. It's just like this, like, amazing, edited, like, crisp, like, it gives you a full picture of the story. And I don't know, it's just like, I had this picture of doing the past, present, and future of each park as told through personal narratives. Like, that was in my mind what I wanted to do. But it was so much work, and I do not have an editing team, and I do not have a big budget for it, and I also have over 30 hours of interviews to go through. So, like, it really, like, spoke to me. He's like, you know, I have a 1-minute podcast. That's what he said. And I was like, oh, interesting. He's like, you don't have to do the traditional thing. And then he said, do only something that, like, only you can do. Do something that only you can do. And do something that you can't not do. And I was like, that's deep.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just trying to figure out, like, what can I not, like, what can't I not do? It's such a weird thing to say. But, like, there's something that drives me. And having these conversations is something that I can't not do. Like, this is something that really, really drives me and makes me passionate. And going to these places excites me. And sharing it with, like, people that want to listen to it, that really excites me. Building a community of people that give a damn about our planet and about each other, that really excites me. Mm-hmm. And as for, you know, what only I can do, I thought the conversations that I have with these people, I'm going to put out the conversations and see who wants to listen to them. And I'm not going to give a bunch of post-production value into it because I honestly won't edit them if I have too much to do. And it's way beyond my skill level right now at this point as well. Sure. So I just decided to put out the interviews, just conversations with people at the park. So anyway, like, that guy, I would have never known that he would have given me solid advice for this trip years ago, and I read in his book also. So it was really fun. And then I made a ton of friends at TravelCon, just really great connections. I think I got over 70 business cards that I still followed up with everybody. But yeah, I mean, like, these are all travelers and amazing, incredible people. And then they also have, like, all of these teaching workshops too. So I, like, not that I'm going to be on YouTube anytime soon, but I learned a bunch of different things for how to do a YouTube channel, Instagram stories, and like, just a ton of stuff that was really, really incredible for me. Time management, even. They had a time management workshop.
Yeah.
It's great for every entrepreneur.
That's really good for every entrepreneur.
20+ pages of notes, like.
That's incredible. Keep sorting through those cards too. I'm not even close to making a dent in all the cards that we got when we went to the World Food Championships here a couple of weeks ago. But let me tell you, great contacts to make and have. I feel like anyone that's in an entrepreneurial position, when they go to these conferences, that is one of the hardest things, is following up with all of those business cards that you get, because I hear it so often from people. They're like, yeah, I got all these business cards, but what do I do with them? Like, isn't the person just going to call me? No, they're not going to call you. You have to call them. You know, that's the way this whole thing works.
The fortune is in the follow-up, right? I heard that one time and I'm like, yeah, that's true, right? Like, if you don't follow up with someone, they forget all about you.
That's a good one. I try to
actually connect with them immediately. Are you on Instagram? Would you like to add me on Facebook? Facebook is more of like a personal relationship. If I really hit it off with them and I'm like, I want to hang out with them sometime, then I'll add them on Facebook. If it's like, hey, like, I'd really just like to follow your travels and your adventures, I'm going to add you on Instagram. Or if I want to, like, send you something, or like we really connected over, you know, something in a business way, I'm like, hey, I'm going to shoot you an email right now so that you don't forget me, right? Or I try to write on the cards something that stood out to me about them, right? Like, really loves travel with kids blogs, right? And I'll be like, oh, hey, like, I found this blog and it really reminded me of you. Because I remembered, because I wrote it on their card, and I will, like, send it to them so they know that I'm really, truly thinking about them and had a connection with them and want to build a relationship with them. So I'm really good at, I'm pretty good at building relationships just because I genuinely actually love people. So.
That's interesting. That's some really good advice. And speaking of liking talking to people and getting to know people, I mean, like you said, you've got 30 plus hours of these interviews to sift through.
Yeah,
can you think of like one or two people that you've talked to that really just knocked your socks off? Maybe were a surprise after you got done with the conversation. You were just like, wow, that just took a complete different turn.
Oh gosh, there's so many. Okay. Well, let's see. I'm like trying to dig through all of my archives.
And of course, you can't say the conversation that we're having because we're in the middle of this conversation. Yeah. I know this is probably going to be up there for you, but just ones prior to you calling me.
Oh, yeah. I understand that joke. Okay, well, there's some really good ones from Denali because I'm editing those right now that I really, really enjoyed. One was talking to the bus driver. So you have to take a bus into Denali National Park if you want to go more than like 15 miles.
Didn't know that.
So I got on this bus and I literally talked to every single person on the bus with me because it was an 8-hour round trip. And so I interviewed pretty much every single person on the bus. And then when the bus driver and I talked the whole time, between all of my interviews, I would sit in the front seat and we really got along and we talked about his travels. And he was a really interesting guy. He was only going to drive the bus in Denali he was only going to be in Denali for 1 year. He actually worked at a restaurant in Denali, and this was in 1983 or 87. And he's been going back now for 33 years. He just literally is in love with Denali. And he drives the bus there, and he is so interesting and informative. He knows so much about the geology of the place and the human history of the place, and was talking about where the ocean used to end and where it used to begin. And I was blown away by all of this. And then he starts talking about his own travels, and he has over I can't even remember. It was over 300,000 railway miles, and I want to say 100. I don't know, millions of airline or airport or plane miles. I don't know how to say that. I live in my van. Okay. I don't do the airplanes as much. And he's just been traveling for 33 years. Every time that he's done working the season in Denali, he just hits the road or takes a plane and he goes to Australia 10 times so far. Anyway, he just had a fascinating story, and you would have never known if you were just getting on the bus and not talking to the bus driver, not talking to the people. On the bus, I also met the guy that literally has been going to Denali National Park since 1967, and he writes the guide for photography and hiking. And I just would have never known. He was just sitting on the bus with me. He's been going since 1967. You never know who you're going to meet. And then went into a gift shop, and I think this is also in Denali. No, it was in Wrangell St. Elias. They all mixed together so much. And so I went to Kenai Fjords National Park there. I went to Wrangell St. Elias, and I went to Denali. Those are all in Alaska. And so in Kenai Fjords, I met just these kids that were in the visitor center that had they were wearing these vests that had hundreds of little badges on them. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to talk to them. And so we just started talking, and they have been to 407 national park units.
What?
They've been going over the last 8 years.
Holy smokes.
And, their parents are awesome. Yeah, it's so cool. We did this interview. The interview was just went over. I mean, it was probably a 40-minute interview. And then I was I want to keep talking to these people. So I helped them carry their totes or something, and we went back to their trailer and we talked for hours. And literally just connected and talked about our love of the national parks, and they just had incredible stories and were just incredible people. And now we're friends, and they want me to come up to Michigan and come stay with them at their house. And the whole family was really, really awesome. And you would just never know if you didn't just follow your curiosity and just talk to strangers. I cannot emphasize how many relationships I've built through just talking to people because I was curious about something. I met this guy in Canada that I drove past his RV and I was feeling so tired and I did not want to talk to people, which is quite frequent, actually. When I'm on the road, I'm just like out of my element and I just don't want to talk to people. But I force myself to do it because I know I'm going to love doing it. So I went past this RV and there was like this big maple. I don't know if you saw I just posted it on Facebook too. There's this big maple on the side of his RV, like a maple leaf. And I was like, that's interesting. And then I get a little bit closer and it's a bunch of pictures of people that formed this maple leaf on the side of his RV. And I was like, no way. I have to figure out what this is all about. This is so cool. Like, this has to be a project or something. So here I am, like, not wanting to talk to people. I think I was, like, feeling, like, I don't know, just exhausted. And I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to turn this around. And I parked in the parking lot. And I felt so silly walking up to this RV and knocking on the door because I'm like, is this even appropriate to, like, just knock on somebody's RV door? Like, so random and awkward. And nobody answered. And I was like, okay, I'm not giving up. This is so interesting. And so I looked on his RV and he had his Instagram handle. And I was like, okay, I'm going to see if he's active on Instagram. So I met him and I was like, hey, like, this is going to sound strange, but I'm sitting in this parking lot and I really want to hear the story behind your RV. I'll just be here for a little bit. I'm going to cook myself lunch or whatever. So like not 5 minutes later, probably, he comes out and he's pushing a cart from the grocery store, wearing a cowboy hat, really interesting dude. He's like, hey, you're from the internet. And like, I think he meant my message. And I was like, yeah, like, I just messaged you. And he's like, come on in. He invites me into his RV and we just start chatting and I'm just helping him unload his grocery bags. And he's like, well, like, let me cook you some lunch. I was like, oh, like, it's no big deal. I offered broccoli, like, because I was cooking that in my little crock pot. And then I mentioned that it was still frozen. He's like, you're offering me frozen broccoli? And I'm like, sorry, this is all I have. And he was just kidding with me. He was like, no, I'm going to make you some chicken. And like, he just made this, like, great lunch. And we ended up talking for just hours, like, just about, he had been on the road for the last 10 years and he's met 67,000 people and taken all of these pictures and formed these collages that were like just thousands and thousands of people's faces. And that was supposed to be like the real face of Canada and the diversity that Canada has. And he does these little photo projects where you hold up like a sign and you write like what it means to you, like Canada is, and then you write something there. Or living in the North means, and you write something there, right? And so he does like, he just wants to put a new face to Canada, like that it's really inclusive and that so many stories go into this one country, right? Mm-hmm. And I really loved it. I mean, it was just really, really cool. So, I mean, you guys got to look that up. It's called The Canadian Mosaic. It's on Facebook and Instagram. It's just really cool.
And we will link that. We will link that.
On here. Obviously, I'm a talker.
Oh, no problem. No problem at all. We will link that on boostboozbbq.com, of course, underneath of this episode over to, facebook.com/Canadian Mosaic. Yeah. I love the photos that you put up here. He has a little sign that says, follow your dreams. They know the way. And that's really, really good. Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. Mike Rowe, he has this saying, you can't always follow your passion, but always bring it with you. And man, that is what this guy's doing. And that's also what you're doing here. And I really like it, respect it, and appreciate it. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us here as well. Do you have anything else that we can learn from you today? Make sure that I got all of your links, facebook.com/Nat Park Stories, patreon.com/Nat Park Stories, at Nat Park Stories on Instagram.
As well.
Yes, your podcast, you're 2 shows in, you're on iTunes.
I have launched my podcast. So that is very exciting news for me because, as I said, I really procrastinated editing that because it seemed like a whole thing. And that is my demise, is making things a whole thing. So I finally just buckled down. Something my life coach did tell me, which really helped with my editing. This might help. I don't know. I feel really, really unmotivated when I'm tired, right? But when I am inspired, in an inspired place, like after I had a really good conversation or after my life coaching session or when I go to a meetup or when I watch a really inspiring show or movie or commencement speech, I have these little like pockets of inspiration. Mm-hmm. And if I can if I can like pair a productive task right after those pockets of inspiration, I have like bursts of energy. And that's when my productivity skyrockets. So what I started doing was, instead of just wasting the time after I would be productive or after I would be inspired, I now pair it with a task that I really want to get done, like a high level task, like editing my podcast or just doing something that I had on my list or need to get done. So I've started pairing it with those pockets of inspiration, and it's really leveled up my game. I feel like I am accomplishing more because of that.
I love that. That's food for thought and knowledge for life. I appreciate the advice. I appreciate what you're doing, Summer. So everybody, make sure that you're going and checking out everything that she's doing. It's all very cool. It's very important as well that we preserve this history and knowledge of our national parks. So I appreciate what you're doing there, and I just appreciate you talking to us.
Yeah, I hope to see you all on the road at some point.
Can't wait. Hey, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And there she goes. What did I tell you guys? How fun was that? I just really appreciate what she's doing. I really appreciate the story that she's telling through her blog and the natural beauty of these parks. I mean, let's be real. We all know, it's a national park, so there's going to be something there, right? But what she captures in her blog and what she captures in her podcast, the stories in conjunction with the photos, it really just is this incredible journey that she's on. It's honestly something that I'm a little bit jealous of. I think I would run out and do that if I had the gumption, and what it must take for a person to say, this is what I'm going to do with my life. I've had enough of the rat race or whatever. I have the flexibility. There's a level of confidence there that a lot of people don't have, even within the anxiety that she was talking about, some of those things, being able to just stop and step outside of that and go, I need to make this change in my life. It's pretty remarkable. And honestly, I dig the concept. I really do. She's working in a tech field. Like she said in the interview, I mean, she goes and finds a Wi-Fi hotspot for 3 or 4 days a week to do her work. But then after that, she gets back out there into the wilderness and into a very simplistic way of living. And that has got to be so liberating, knowing that you make your way into civilization to do your work. But then when you go home, you're not really going home. You're going on another adventure. You're taking yourself, you're packing up, and you're just taking off, and you're staying in the wilderness in this beautiful area, and you're just kind of enjoying the nature around you. I don't know. I like that concept a lot. There's a disconnect that not a lot of people have, and I think everyone should do. We all know it. We all hear about the summer camps for the inner city kids and stuff like that, and it helps all of the, whatever you want to call it. It helps with the depression. It helps with the anxiety. It helps get you out of yourself long enough to see that the world is massive and beautiful. And it isn't just comprised of what's on your screen. I hope that the takeaway after hearing this episode is that we have got beautiful landscapes around us. We have got so much land here in the United States that is just wild. I'm not going to call it uncharted, but certainly untamed. And for most of us, it's a short trip to any one of these. And I do think that the importance of going and visiting these places and staying a little while, getting that time away from all the other stuff that you're doing, getting away from all the social media, getting away from the cell phones, getting away from all that, take your camera, take your phone, take some photos, because you're going to want to remember this stuff. It's going to be a reason for you to try to go back and do it again. So a huge thanks to Summer for doing that. Her blog and her podcast are really blowing up. Very popular stuff, and I do encourage you to go and check that out. Links to everything that she's doing is going to be underneath of this episode at boostboozbbq.com. And while you're out there, of course, check out boostboozbbq.com/pardonmyfork. I talked about at the top of the show. We got a lot of fun stuff going on over there, so make sure you're checking that out. Don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes. You want that free shirt. You're tuning in anyways. You know that I'm going to be calling a name at the end of not next episode, but the episode after. And that name is going to get a free shirt shipped to it. Might as well be you, right? So go out there, do that for me. I really appreciate it. A huge thanks to you guys for tuning in. A huge thanks for telling a friend. For summer, this is Andy, and we will see you next time. Boost, Booze, and Barbecue.